level starts here.
العالمية تبدأ هنا.
Globalno počinje ovdje.
Le succès mondial commence ici.
El éxito global empieza aquí. Глобальный успех начинается здесь.
And now, to deliver today's featured address, please welcome the Vice President of Engineering, Boeing Space, Defense, Space, and Security, Mr. Dennis O'Donoghue.
Good afternoon. When I was asked to come and speak and be the host for the luncheon, I said, how much time do I have to speak? They said, 5 minutes. So I thought back to Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address, 272 words. And interestingly, Lincoln wasn't the main speaker that day in Gettysburg. Imagine being president of the United States and you're not the main speaker at an event. A man by the name of Edward Everett, who was one of the great orators of the day, gave a 2-hour speech, and after Lincoln finished his 272 words, he said, Lincoln said more in 2 minutes than I said in 2 hours. So I'm inspired by Lincoln. I doubt that I will leave you with anything as inspirational as the Gettysburg Address, but I am inspired to be short and to the point, so I will. The Boeing Company, we're in our 100th year. Not too many companies can say they've been around for 100 years. From very humble beginnings in a red barn on the banks of the Duwamish River outside of Seattle, Washington in 1916, to what we are today, a global company with 160,000 plus employees all around the world, touching every aspect of the art, the science, and the industry of aeronautics and space. And our founder, Bill Boeing, was very much inspired by the dream of flight, inspired by great innovative pioneers like the Wright brothers, who we all know were the first ones to invent the airplane. Or were they? There's a considerable amount of debate about, who were the first inventors to actually develop and fly an airplane. The Brazilians would tell you with quite a bit of passion that it was Alberto Santos Dumont, that he flew an airplane before the Wright brothers. The Europeans would tell you it was Richard Whitehead. There's a fair bit of evidence that suggests that the first person to fly an airplane actually was a New Zealander by the name of Richard Pierce, and he flew just a few months before the Wright brothers. Interestingly, it could have been a Mexican. It could have been a Mexican. Victor Ochoa. Victor Ochoa started to work on gliders, powered gliders, in the 1880s. And he was making a fair bit of progress towards manned flight in the 1890s, but he got a bit distracted. He got distracted because not only was not only inspiring from a technological standpoint, he inspired a very popular and ultimately unsuccessful uprising, and personally led a rebel army against the dictatorship of President Defrio Diaz in the 1890s. And because it was unsuccessful, he ended up having to flee Mexico, finally surrendered himself to the Texas Rangers, and spent 4 years in jail. By the time he was released and he got back around to his design of a powered airplane, he did fly it, but it was a few years after the Wright brothers. What all these men have in common, regardless of who was really the first to fly the airplane, what they have in common is they were inspired by the dream of flight. And through their own accomplishments, they inspired countless others. Others that they never met and will never know. But they spawned a whole generation who was inspired by that same dream of flight. And that generation spawned another generation. And that generation inspired another generation. I was inspired as, I've spent most of my career as an experimental test pilot. I was inspired by Scott Crossfield, who among test pilots is known as the greatest test pilot of all time. Oh, by the way, he was half Hispanic, half Irish. We honor our luminaries and our HENAAC award winners today, not just for their professional accomplishments, which in and of themselves, those accomplishments are impressive. We honor them also for the inspiration, for inspiring another generation. And as they come up on stage, I can only imagine the satisfaction they must feel in knowing that they have impacted the lives of countless people all around the world who will follow them into science and math and technology and engineering. And ultimately, the world is going to be a better place. So with that, I don't know if that was 272 words, but I'll end with the Boeing Company is extremely proud to host this luncheon and to do our part to honor these great men and women. And to the honorees, on behalf of the entire Boeing Company, thank you for inspiring a new generation. Enjoy lunch.